Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. This is our first webinar for a series of a few this year. We'll be focusing on engaging online content and looking at how to address some of those barriers in contacting, participating, engaging learners. We are very lucky to be joined today with two panelists, and I will go through and introduce those in a moment. Just one moment. I just want to let everyone know, if you do have comments or questions, I'm happy for you to list them in the chat. And as we are going, it'll be like an open discussion. Where I can, I will try to raise those questions or those comments with our panelists. And it is going to be quite an informal discussion where we explore the best ways that we can engage some of our learners. So just in terms of an overview for today, we'll go through some statistics around learning and how that's changed post-COVID. We'll actually define what we mean by learner engagement so we can understand the context of some of these questions and discussions. And then as we go through the panel discussion, as I said, it'll be an open discussion. So feel free to raise questions and comments in the chat, and I will try to filter those through to the panelists. And then if it's not appropriate at that time or we don't have time, I will address them at the end, or we can then contact you directly should you want some more specific customized solutions for some of those concerns or questions that you have. So just in terms of introduction, we've, as I said, very lucky to have two award-winning teachers with us, Susan Shaw and Sean Bathman. Susan at the moment is teaching, or has a Master of TESOL, and is actually teaching in that space at Bendigo. And she was awarded excellence in language literacy and numeracy in 2022. And in that same year, Sean Bathman was, or is the lead educator, and was recognised as one of the Kengan's Institute Teacher of the Year. So I'll just, and for most of you who already know me, I'm Ramona Yin, and I'm the education manager here at eWorks, and I look after a lot of the VET programs and content development and content solutions. I will basically run the panel discussion, but Susan and Sean will share their experiences and practices with us. So perhaps reflect on whether you do things similar or different to what's been spoken about, whether you share the same challenges or experiences, and then raise any questions you might have about how that might look like for your own teaching and learning practice. So I'll just quickly hand it over to Susan. Firstly, just to give us a brief overview of her experience and her cohort, and then the same followed by Sean.
Sure thing. Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm Susan. I teach in vocational English here at Broadmeadows campus. Vocational English is a government program for migrants and refugees who are newly arrived, and they get free English classes from the Australian government, hopefully to get them a job. And we obviously have certain challenges. Many people who are newly arrived are adjusting to Australian life. Many of them have come from traumatic experiences overseas, missing their families and so on. So they have a particular set of problems. It's not just language learning, but it's learning a whole new way of life. So they have a particular set of problems, and online learning can be something totally new to them. Not all of them, but some of them is very new. So lots of challenges here.
Thank you. Sean?
Hi all, my name's Sean. I work in the VC department. I'm the lead ed, and as well as a teacher. I've been at Kangan for 6 years, and I work with disengaged youth. So our VC department have all types of youth from 15 to about 19 now. So the age different is a little bit different to when I first started. We had a couple of 20-year-olds in our system, but we're mainly a school within a school at Kengan Institute. So we deal with the youth that just want to be in an adult learning environment, and they're just disengaged from high school or secondary school teaching life. So yeah, so we bring them through our program, and yeah, especially being a low socioeconomic area. E-learning has been challenging, and especially through the COVID period, and leading up to now. So yeah, we learned a fair few things along the way. So we'll talk about that shortly.
Definitely. Looking forward to reflect those experiences and sharing them with you all. So just in terms of some of the statistics to have a look at, to put the session in context. So pre-COVID, there wasn't that much online learning. It was seen to be an innovative approach, if you like, to learning. It's become the norm at the moment, but pre-COVID, that wasn't the case. We were looking at around 19% of our learners being online. And at the moment in 2021, a lot of the work-related training is more than half our businesses are now online, doing some form of training online. So it's not just, even though our presenters are from the vet space, it's not just to do with vocational education and learning, but businesses will see the same issues and would have faced some of the same experiences in bringing that training online. So just to put it in context, again, some of the statistics around online learning. Recently, within the last 12 months, about 42% of all of the learning population participated in some form of learning. And that could have been formal, it could have been enrolled in a particular qualification or micro-credential. It could have been work-related training through inductions or specific work skills, or it could have been non-formal learning through some sort of a non-formal, mentoring or coaching session. So in terms of that breakup, it'll be interesting to see that non-formal learning actually was the majority way of how we learned. So that might inform how do we set up our training sessions when, the data might suggest that that non-formal learning is the best approach. How do we embed that on-the-job skills or on-the-job experience in an online environment, or simulate that in an online environment, and support our learners to still be doing those formal training, whether it's attaining a qualification or work-related training, but in an environment where it's really led by the student. And online learning does allow itself that opportunity more than when we're in a structured classroom setting. So just reflect on those statistics as we go through our session. Again, further to putting the session in context, defining what learner engagement actually means, and it could mean different things. So before I ask Susan and Sean what they think, as a general definition, I guess, it would be around the quantity and quality of participation when we talk about engagement. So how much are our learners engaging with our content or with our training, and what is the quality of that engagement? What is it that they actually do when they're engaging, or when they're disengaged? What is it, or why is it that they're not engaged? Susan, would you have a different or an addition to that in terms of what learner engagement might mean?
Absolutely. So we certainly define learners as being engaged when they are participating in the learning environment. But for me, having learner engagement as a goal as a teacher, I think of it as they want to learn, like I want to engage them. That means they want to be there and they want to learn. So it could be social engagement in that they feel they belong in the class. They're amongst friends, they're safe. And again, then it'll be cognitive engagement where there's something that they want to learn. Learning can be a fun experience. So when they're in that state where there's something is intriguing them or engaging them cognitively, that's ideal, I think. Personally, I like to start a class often with a question or a puzzle or a mystery, because whether you like it or not, people are drawn to that kind of thing. It's like why we get on our phones. Now, 9 out of people can't solve this problem, can you? You're like,
yeah.
So I love to start with the question, why do we pronounce this word like this, or and get them thinking, and then together we'll solve the mystery. It's getting them to want to do that, either in class face-to-face or online, is what I aim for when I think of learner engagement.
Yep. So that's fantastic. So I guess a part of that learner engagement definition is also around the motivation.
Motivation. So it becomes
actually wanting to be there.
Intrinsic, rather than I have to be here because, you know, I have to get a job, or Centrelink made me be here, or my mum made me come. It's something, it's much more effective and long lasting if the learner says, I'm actually enjoying the process of learning. Yeah.
Sean?
Yeah, learner engagement for me it's much like Susan's. It is participation, and participation without prompting, which is creating an environment where students do want to come in and go, oh, what are we doing today? Having a structured class and being prepared for engagement is one of the biggest things to engage learners. Also, one key thing for us is creating lifelong learners. So they participate in your course, but then they're starting to look at what's the next thing you want to do. So lifelong learners is huge. Also, around engagement, there's like this precedent where you're looking at I feel like there's a false sense of security around results. A lot of people can pass classes because they turn up and do the work, but not a lot of people get involved in classes. So that's right. That's when you look at engagement. So I can turn around and go to a course and do a 2-day course and just get my certificate and leave, where a person who's actively participating, they will learn and it will encourage critical thinking, investigation, analyzing, and then actually putting it in order to understand it. So that's how I feel engagement is from a learner for me. And really seeing that progress from being a novice to actually being knowledgeable in the topics. So that's where I look at engagement levels.
Yeah, so I think we can agree from both of those discussions that environment is important as well. To engage learners. So in an online situation, it might be what does it look like? What does that learner journey look like? And even something as simple as what is the imagery or the activities we're putting online. Get it wrong, that's okay. It's still part of my learning experience. And we'll get a little bit more into that as we move along. So I think the first question might be, what are some of the barriers that you've come across in terms of learner barriers, predominantly in online learning, but just generally with the type of learner characteristics that you have? What are some of the barriers that you're seeing?
I'll go first. So some of the barriers that we've seen is home life. How is their home life, which lead into family stuff, where that's where the low socioeconomic comes into it. Are they able to afford to be actively participating in online learning? And what steps that we've done to fix that? So actually giving students laptops and all the tools to be able to succeed. Learning styles is a massive one of online learning. So a lot of people are face-to-face, comfortable with face-to-face learning. It's all about trying to build a rapport with somebody. And that barrier going across the learning styles is, instead of seeing somebody in person, you actually have to actively listen. And you got to depict their voice. It's kind of like looking at someone's body language. You need to pick up on their voice. You need to learn how your learners learn, and you need to know when your learners aren't quite there that day. So
that's an excellent point. How do you reflect that space again online?
So you just ask questions. You firstly, online can be tough, and the first thing you should do is go, how's your day going? It's as simple as that. And you can actually hear from their tone, all right, this person's going to have a good day. This person might need a little bit extra help, which leads into rapport online. So rapport is everything. If you've got a good rapport with someone, you'll have a great class. And structure. If you don't have
Fantastic.
structure online and short, sharp activities, the longer the activity is, the less engagement you'll get online. So you got to mix it up a bit pretty quickly and kind of let the students know your next move, but not have them know exactly what you're going to do next really online. So
Yeah.
don't make it boring. That's all I can say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with Sean. Rapport is number one. We know that learning takes place ideally in an environment where people feel relaxed and happy and receptive to learning something. So teaching refugees that might have come from a traumatic background, number one, you want them to feel relaxed, happy, and that they belong. My rule for myself is learn their names day one, whether it's face-to-face or online. I get them to hold up their name take a photo, and that's my homework, is first thing to learn their names so I can welcome them. But also just so they feel comfortable making mistakes. That's really important. I say, I love mistakes. Please make them. It's really important. That's how you learn. So your rapport and technological challenges. A lot of our learners are a lot of older people. They've come from rural areas and never sent an email in their lives. So laptops can help, but I found even just phones, some students didn't even have a phone. I went backwards in technologies for my lower level classes during COVID. I would just ring them up and they loved that. So sometimes it's letting go of the latest thing and saying, what can we do? And for them, having a conversation with an Australian person on the phone was something that was really valuable to them. And it's just using the phone, me saying, how are you? What are you doing today? Oh, I stayed home. Oh, me too. How about that? So whether it's in class, in face-to-face or online, look at what you can do. When you meet a barrier, say, okay, this might be hard to do, but what can I do that will be a valuable experience? Yeah.
So I think in both of those examples that, again, is coming up, creating that environment, which is a little bit easier to, I suppose, control, if you like, in a classroom setting. You can see straight away some of those disengagement cues, whereas you may not see them all the time. But the other, I think, mistake, and a lot of organisations did that when moving online during COVID, that rush to get all your content online, is forgetting that not everybody has the facilities or resources to do some of that work, but also the capability and the digital skills. So it then became teaching not only the subject or the matter of what you're teaching, but also teaching them that digital literacy to be able to use technology. So again, when developing these online courses, there has to be how do we scaffold that learning so it's not all up front? How do we get them to learn what they need to learn, but also learn to use the technology to maximize that experience? So on the back end of that, I guess, how do you capture attention in a face-to-face environment? So as we discussed, there are some cues we look out for, but what do you actually do to engage students in a classroom situation to actually grab their attention?
Well, face-to-face, you look at what can I do face-to-face that I can't do online. So I came back to the classroom going, right, let's do some kinesthetic learning, moving, look at all the different learning styles and apply as many as you can. So if we're classifying something, for example, classifying different words, they might be moving from table to table, putting words on tables or in envelopes, actually moving and putting things in where they belong. Like this word is a verb, this word is a noun, this is an adjective over there. You can do a similar thing online with, say, a drag and drop activity, but make the most of what you can do face-to-face. I did a couple of weeks ago, I did a QR code treasure hunt where I was teaching level 2's following directions. So I set up QR codes around the Broadmeadows campus. If anyone here's probably seen them around. And they had to scan and read the directions to the rest of the group, which would tell them where the next QR code was. They went to the library, they found a letter, came and wrote the letter on the board and made a word. And that was the winner. So it was fun because it actually is, in person, moving around a space, which you can't do online. And online, lots of visuals, especially for our learners. They need visual stimulation, but not just stimulation. It helps them to understand any text. Text should be minimal for our learners as well, but videos, music, whatever you can to support learners in as many different learning styles works both ways.
Sean, do you have particular things that you use in the classroom to draw the students' attention?
So the first thing I do is before any student comes in my classroom at the very start of the year, we're pretty lucky. We've been allocated classrooms. So I just create a really nice learning space, posters all over the walls, pens, texters, everything that they actually need is there in my room. So they don't have to stress about anything. And then create a positive, safe learning environment. So you're allowed to make mistakes. There will be nobody judging you, any of that type of stuff, to actually try and embrace learning. The next thing I do is I create activities that the students are interested in. And it might take a little bit of extra time for people to do that, but when you create an interest for a student, they'll actually really enjoy your classroom. And also adaptive pedagogy. The pedagogy word gets thrown around a lot. There's adult learning principles, and there's pedagogy in the schooling system. So I really like the holistic approach. So looking at the whole student, how they learn. I really enjoy creating a worksheet, then a video to back that up, and then a group discussion, and then they go and do the work. That's what I really enjoy doing. I enjoy getting my students out of the classroom as much as possible, because as much as the classroom is fantastic to be inside, it's still like, it's really nice to go do work in a garden or that type of thing. So we try to get out like that, and have a reward system. So have a brain break. So all of a sudden you've done all this work. Okay, we're going to play a game of, if I had $10 million, what would you spend it on? And then all of a sudden you got that 10 minutes of break. And then the students are going, all right, I'm fresh again. I can go and start completing work again. So, and trying to create it as fun as possible. So fun, safe, positive learning environment. That's what I try to encourage.
Fantastic. So for our attendees, if you want to put in the chat what sort of things that you do in the classroom to draw people's attention and share it with us and each other, it'd be great. Feel free to do that, and we can learn from each other in our practices. Follow on from that question. So we looked at what we do in the classroom.
Yep.
How do you see the differences between an online teaching environment and a classroom, I guess? And some of those things that you could move or do differently from in your classroom. So you're walking around campus, you're working in the garden. If that was to be only online, how would you still be doing some of those activities, or how would you change them for online? So maybe, Susan, you can start.
Yeah, sure. Look, the same basic principles apply to face-to-face or online. And that's sound pedagogy. That comes first. Teaching principles are the same. It's just the mode that changes, and the challenges and the barriers become opportunities, I think. So I know when I was online, I thought I want to present something to these students that's revision, vocabulary revision, but it's boring, just do another quiz. So I came up with that digital escape room. Escape rooms are things that you go to with your friends or family, and you have to follow a set of clues to get out of the room. And then you're in another room, you've got to find the clues to get to a next room. So I created one. It's not that hard. Using Google Docs of all things, because Google Docs, they create a quiz and you can unlock questions. So I put them all into breakout rooms, sent them all the first clue. And once they'd solved that clue, they moved to another digital room, which is just a picture. Yes, you've got one. This is an example of what I want to talk about. So, for example, they might see this The clue
just
is
show
a
people.
4-letter word. So they've got to type in a 4-letter word, and they love working in group breakout rooms. And they see this as a to-do list. This is all things that are what we call the imperative verb form: finish, go, buy, dinner. And they can see that, oh yeah, there's code there. So they work out the code, type in the correct word, and they're in another room, and they've got another puzzle to follow. And the final room, they had a word they had to send to me. First group that sent me the right word were the winners. And they loved that because they were getting to work together. And it's making the most of a digital space rather than feeling inhibited by it or limited by it. There are some really fun things you can do. So yeah, make the most of it, I think.
Excellent example. Sean?
Yeah, so they're two different beasts, online and face-to-face, and it's really,
Yeah.
really different. So for like my teaching approach and myself as a teacher is a caring, fun, trying to kind of active teacher. So the first part was we had discussions, myself and my students, when we first started, and I was like, all right, how can we make this better for you? What do you want? Do you want me to talk for an hour? Do you want to do videos? Do you want to do Kahoots? Do you want to do... So it was getting to know what the learners want to do, because it was really fresh for everybody at that time. So what we come up with is short, sharp activities. So like 10, 15-minute activities that created an environment which was like, all right, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then all of a sudden, if we need to do in the parts of assessments, we can do the one-on-ones, we can do the breakout rooms, all that type of stuff. The difference is really understanding what you're hearing from your student, because you can't see it. So majority of the time, people's cameras may not be on. So all you're hearing is a voice. So sometimes you need to figure out who needs more support, even when they're saying they're okay.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing with that. The engagement level was a lot different. Also, change your backgrounds. Be in the beach one day and then all of a sudden you're in New York City. So change your backgrounds. That works. I was a premiership Collingwood player at one stage. So what's it called? So getting the students to have a look. Oh, what's the teachers or trainers background going to be today? And just when you do create your activities, try not to do long, lengthy activities, because with that, you generally do lose a bit of engagement and generally go, oh, I'll pop offline, I'll do it myself and I'll come back on later.
Yeah.
That's a lot what we got when it was a bit lengthy. So
Yeah.
and you got to be adaptable. You have to keep changing it because the same thing's not going to work. So same, like you had your active whiteboards too on there, which was really good. But as for the comparing the two, massive difference, but because everybody wants that human connection where the computer takes it out a little bit. So then you got to try and bridge that gap by building a rapport a different way. So that's through conversations. That's through maybe just standing there listening to somebody through a screen. So that's what I found that was a bit different. And to get them engaged, it's a slow process at the start, but you build into it. So yeah.
Yep. Susan, did you want to just walk us through this example? The live
yes. Yeah, this is something I discovered during COVID. Live worksheets, it's fantastic. At some point early on during the lockdowns, we became like an old-fashioned correspondence school where we were mailing out workbooks. They'd mailed them back, we'd look through them, and it was a bit strange to send out, to just post up a PDF in WhatsApp or something was okay, but they'd still have to, they couldn't print it at home, they'd just write down the answers. These are fantastic. I recommend everyone, when you finish here, go and just Google live worksheets if you're not familiar with them. They're interactive worksheets and you can create your own. It's free, but there's already a lot there anyway. This is one I created, I think, about paying a phone bill. So they have to get multiple choice answers, go through it on their own. They can do it on their phone, just tick, 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 tick. and finish. And when they press finish, it gives them a score, 5 out of 10 or 8 out of 10. And then they can send that to their teacher or just screenshot it and put it up in WhatsApp. So they're all actually doing something, and you can create something for the class tomorrow or find something for the class tomorrow that's relevant. And yeah, they're doing it and they enjoy it. Everyone loves a bit of flicking and multiple choice. Yeah, live worksheets, good.
I've heard a lot through your examples around games, really. It's not always about just traditional forms of teaching and learning. It's about how do we embed games in some of our activities, some of those, how do we get students to move? How do we get students to actually learn, if you like, without learning? It's just doing an activity, but as a result of that, there is a reflection piece at the end, whether it's the results that they get, whether it's a discussion. So in terms of setting that up all up, I know Sean discussed that, in terms of setting up that environment or that space, there was a discussion had with the students, and sometimes we have the opportunity to do that and really talk to the group before setting up our timetables or our training for employees, whatever that might look like. And other times we just have to go off experience. So what have previous learners of this particular topic or particular subject or course been like, and base it on that. Can you walk me through in terms of how we create that learning space or that safe learning environment in a classroom? And Sean gave examples of putting up posters, giving them the resources that they might need, whether it be pens and texters or the books, whatever it might be. We've got to control over that environment, what it looks like, I guess. How do we do that online?
So some like when we used to send the links through for the classes online, at the bottom of the email, you might put a funny picture. You might tell a joke or put in a riddle, just to create a fun environment leading into the classes. When you're in there, it's really important to have some story sharing, and not just the chalk and talk by the teacher. You need to have some story sharing by every student in there, if they feel comfortable. That's another thing. Students need to feel comfortable to share. Props. I know there's physical props and then there's online props. So get your videos ready or get your breakout games ready or all that sort of stuff. Create a schedule for the class. Say 9 o'clock come in, 9:15 start. Get to know each other from 9 to 9:15, and then from 9:15 to 9:40 we're doing this. So really structure it. Collaborative learning is really important online too. So if people are working in teams, they tend to be a lot more engaged in your class than if they feel like they're alone. So it's still important to have that connection with each other. And understanding situations. If you don't understand someone's situation, then you're more often than not going to get a disengaged learner. So get to know your students, have one-on-ones, even if it's just a brief 5-minute chat. Get to know the situation that your student's in at that point in time. If they got 3 kids and they're a single mum, or if they're a 15-year-old at home with brothers and sisters running around and it's noisy, so that's why they can't talk back to you. So figure out their situation. Sometimes, yeah, people might just be lazy and can't be bothered. That's going to happen. But understanding situations is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to explore something further. In a classroom setting, you've got a schedule or you've got a timetable of some sort, and we usually share that with our students. A lot of our corporate training or different types of learning outside of it may not have a schedule. It's all online.
Yep.
Is there a way that we could schedule that? So even though it's not facilitated, that the student still knows, well, this module runs in this particular order, there's this much time I might need to spend. Is there any ideas around that?
Yeah, so you would build your resource around that. And in the resource, you might just put in added this this activity might take you 15 minutes to complete.
Mhm.
And then once you've completed it, give yourself this amount of time to complete the extra tasks. Like, so build that into it, because
Mhm.
a lot of people, they want to see how long it's going to take compared to going, all right, this might take forever. And
Well,
it's
from your experience, sorry.
Yeah.
Just from your experience and Susan, your experience, do you think putting timers on that, so you've got a 15-minute activity and then it closes at a certain time, do you think that would encourage engagement or discourage them?
I think it would encourage it, just because with online learning, there's a lot of procrastination.
Yeah.
And there's no deadline. And without deadlines, we'll go, oh, we'll do it tomorrow. Oh,
We'll do it last minute.
I might sweep the floor, but I'll come back and I might do it. So if there's no deadline and no time frame, potentially it may just be held off for weeks or months or days on end. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right. If it's asynchronous, like if you give them things to complete on My Learning, they might put it off. They love those green ticks though. I set up the My Learning courses and I make sure that's always the activity completion, yes, because once they know that's what they collect, and that I can see them, I can see if they log on at 2 a.m. on a Sunday or something. Oh, okay. And I always encouraging independent learning in our higher levels. I'll send them a schedule for outside of the class learning for the week, so they know exactly what they have to complete. And I say, if you have a busy day, you can't do any of that day, it's up to you to organise your own time. And they appreciate that. They actually enjoy some structure and some flexibility.
So just for some of our viewers, My Learning is an LMS that BKI use, which is Moodle based or Open LMS. So if we're referring to My Learning, what we are talking about is that Open LMS, traditionally Moodle. Great. Is there any other examples or tips and tricks before we wrap up you want to share with the participants in terms of what you think really might make or break engaging learning? And just while you're thinking about that, if our participants want to put some of their tips and tricks in the chat, feel welcome to do that. But otherwise, Susan and Sean, maybe share some of the tips and tricks that you've got to ensure that engagement.
I would say the biggest tip I can give is your voice. Your voice is your greatest asset online. And if you're boring, mellow tone, and really lethargic, your lesson won't be fantastic. But if you're upbeat, happy, smiling, talking really loud, also calling out somebody by their name, it gives you that interaction. That's what's going to really make your class a much better class. So use your voice, use people's names, I would say.
So that might be another consideration for online learning, is how do we maybe create our own videos or voiceover. It might be just a message, a voice message on the LMS where we're prompting or explaining something, where we have that opportunity to still personalize that experience.
Yeah, I do a lot of videos. I have a YouTube channel. That's another tip. Get a YouTube channel. It's private. No one can Google me, but I can send links, so I can create a video how to do something. Like if it's something online that they're not sure about, I can create a video about how to do it and just send them the link. But I can also, like I wrote a song about staying home and record that. I was bored and I stayed home. It's called I Stayed Home. And they love that. They can watch it over and over and show their families. This is my DJ. No. But yeah, that's another good tip. If you can record something, even just a morning greeting. So if there are people coming in late, they can see your morning greeting, what we're doing. This morning, I want everyone to run and grab something in your house that starts with the letter P, or I want you all to show me an object of yours that you love. Right, you've got 5 minutes to go and get it. Things like that, making the most of the environment that you have. But like Sean says, rapport and enthusiasm. If if you don't enjoy teaching, you know, I think we all enjoy teaching. You've got to let them know that you do. It helps if you're a nerd on your topic as well. I'm a bit of a grammar nerd, and there's always a few in the class. I can't control myself when I get excited about grammar. So yeah, that absolutely. Learning names, sharing your enthusiasm about things, being interested, letting them share themselves, especially people newly arrived to Australia. They all have stories and they want to tell the stories, but they don't have the words yet. So giving them the tools to share those stories makes them want to learn and want to take on the language.
Fantastic. So we've had a few examples there, and I think the big takeaway is personalizing that relationship and that interaction along that learner journey. So thinking about, even if it is self-paced and wholly online, how do we do that? How do we think about different strategies, different tools, different activities we can use where the learner still feels connected, either through with other colleagues or peers that are doing that, or other students that are doing that course or subject, but also with their teacher. And sometimes if it's self-paced, there's that missing link. So thinking about how do we still be present without being present in that activity? How do we still share some of that personal experience and support without being there? That brings us to the end of our webinar for today. So thank you so much for Susan and Sean's very valuable insights into what we can do. We haven't got a lot of questions or comments in the chat about learner experiences or personal experiences in online learning, but for anybody out there that does want to hear more or learn more about what was discussed today, or would like to do a consultation around your current LMS or content development, or even just your learning strategy, feel free to reach out. You can, the details are on the page. You can visit our website to just see more about who we are, but also the webinar will be recorded and shared. So feel free to share it with your teams if you like, but also if you want to go over anything and look at some of those links that we've shared, we're more than welcome you to see the site. And that'll be all from us. And we've got another webinar soon, April 27th, and that's going to look more on the LMS side, choosing the right LMS, depending on the type of training that you do. So we look forward to seeing you all back on 27th of April. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Susan.